Hi, it's Coffeeco, and today I'm going to be making a video essay. This is going to be me basically making a video out of passion because I love this album, and it's going to go into things that other video essays don't normally talk about, like aesthetics and fashion. So yeah, because I honestly find it kind of weird that the only video essays on Pretty Odd are very, like, by the book. They're very, you know, straight to the point. They don't have any whimsy. I'm here to make it whimsical and funky, can't you tell? So I'm basically going to break this video down into little sections, and they're pretty much going to go in order of the beginning to the end, starting at the Cricket and Clover era to the split of Panic. Before I even start to talk about Pretty Odd, I have to first mention Cricket and Clover. Cricket and Clover is a scrapped 2007 album by Panic! At the Disco. This album predates Pretty Odd and was the reason why it basically got made. Cricket and Clover was the album that Panic wrote right after their Fever tour. For it, they decided to get a little funky. So the band rented a cabin in Charleston, Nevada in 2007, and they tried to start writing their fairy tale whimsical specific time period record. So Cricket and Clover was meant to be this very cinematic, fairy tale-like, psychedelic, continuing that theme, record where Ryan Ross in particular wanted it to be an album that you could only play in like one specific time period. I don't know what time period he meant, like only 2007, we'll never know because it was scrapped. The band originally as well didn't even want to use actual instruments on this album, and Spencer wanted to make like a drum set out of like random like rocks and stuff, and Ryan almost didn't even want any guitars on this album. The songs like lack choruses. Yeah, it's like I said, they got funky, but unfortunately they got a little bit too funky because none of the songs ended up working out. The band ended up fighting a lot. During this whole point, they were doing a bunch of drugs, which unfortunately affected Spencer Smith with a drug addiction down the line, which led to him leaving the band. The only songs that are possible to listen to from Cricket and Clover are True Love, which they have performed one time live, and the other is Nearly Witches, which was originally a demo that they recorded in 2007, and it ended up on Vices and Virtues from 2011. And the rest is gone. It's a scrapped album. They have not released anything else. Apparently, both John and Ryan have the demos, but like they'll get in trouble if they post them or something like that.
Really up to me. I think John wanted to post them and was gonna get in trouble for them, so I'm down.
You're down.
Are
So
any
it's
of them
John?
fully out there?
No.
Okay, I have them.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Oh,
not on me.
So it's unclear if we're ever actually going to hear Cricket and Clover. Last thing to mention is that during Cricket and Clover, Brendan Urie described this as the beginning of the end, as the band could not get along, which led to it being scrapped. Moving past Cricket and Clover, we're going to start with the history of Pretty Odd. So after they threw away everything from Cricket and Clover, they decided to go back to the same place, the same street, the same studio that they recorded Fever in 2005, and they started to write a record that was the complete opposite of Cricket and Clover. So they decided to make a very upbeat, lighthearted, psychedelic rock record that drew a lot from the 60s and 70s, instead of just like Ryan doing drugs and being like, I'm gonna write about a fairy tale. Love that for Ryan. So funnily enough, they recorded this album and wrote it in the middle of winter. The entire album goes on about summer, and the whole themes of the album is like summer and spring. They wrote the entire thing in like January, so that's funny. It's really funny to me. But yeah, so they wrote that, and then it got mixed in Abbey Road Studio, which is a foreshadowing to what this record sounds like. And then the second studio album by Panic! At the Disco was released March 21st, 2008. Pretty Odd was co-written, unlike Fever, which was mostly written by Ryan Ross. This one had a lot more of the band collaborating, as well as Brendan writing 2 songs fully on his own. Granted, they were like less than 2 minutes each, but they still count. He wrote them, okay? We're not gonna talk about Brendan Urie. We don't like Brendan Urie here. This is a Ryan album. Anyway, next I'm going to be talking about the songs on the album, and I'm going to be categorizing them into kind of joke categories. All of the songs, the entire record, is just beautiful. Point blank, it's beautiful. It is such a gorgeous record. The songs are so beautiful. Ryan Ross's lyricism is beautiful. He is a genius. Okay, now let's categorize the songs. I have, our first category is the harder ones, which I would say are Pas de Cheval, She's a Handsome Woman, and We're So Starving. These are more so rock songs. They're not Fever type rock songs, but they're like rock in their own way. I think out of all these, my favorite would be probably She's a Handsome Woman, only because We're So Starving is like 1.5 minutes long. It's still a bop though. And side note, it's kind of funny, the words, don't worry, we're still the same band, because that's never true for Panic with any new album release. Ryan wrote some like really funny, ironic lyrics that Brendan has to continue to sing for like decades later. Love that. This category, a lot of the songs fit into. The slower melodic songs, which I'd say are I Have Friends in Holy Spaces, Northern Downpour, When the Day Met the Night, Behind the Sea, and She Held the World. It's really hard for me to say which one out of these are my favorites. I have to go with, of course, Northern Downpour, and also When the Day Met the Night. The next category I like to call drug songs. This is ones where you can tell that Ryan Ross was doing mushrooms when he wrote them, based off of the lyrics. So these songs have lyrics that just don't make sense. The first and most obvious one of this is Mad as Rabbits, 9 in the Afternoon, The Piano Knows Something I Don't, and Mountain in the... I can't with that song title, it's too long and confusing. It's a drug song, you know what I mean. Next I have folk, because there's a folk song on this record, which just the only song in this is Floatin' Around, which is one of the only ones that Brendan wrote. Why did Brendan Urie write a whole ass folk song in 2008? We'll never know, but it's there and it's on this album, so. And my next category is the best one, which is Do You Know What I'm Seeing? It's my favorite song, so I categorized it as the best. This is just my opinion. This is not a factual category. See, it has like similar lyrics to the slower melodic, but it has like the sound of the drug songs. So now that I've gone through the songs and categorized them, very accurately might I add, very factual. Now I'm going to be going through the lyrics, and I've kind of split this up into 2 sections of the lyrics. So the first is going to be references to the Pretty Odd era within the lyrics. This one's probably the most like well-known and easy to recognize when you hear it, is in 9 in the Afternoon, which the lyrics are, back to the street, back to the place, back to the room where it all began. This is very clearly a reference to them being in the exact same studio on the exact same street where they wrote Fever. The next one is from The Piano Knows Something I Don't. The lyrics are, everything's gone missing, I've lost more songs to floods. I can't prove this makes any sense, but I sure hope that it does. This is a reference to Cricket and Clover being scrapped, Ryan losing all of his songs, and hoping that this record will make more sense than Cricket and Clover did. And the next one isn't actually a lyric, but it's just the song title, which in itself is a reference to Cricket and Clover, which is From a Mountain in the Middle of the Cabins, which doesn't make sense, and he flipped it around, but whatever. Ryan does what he wants with the song titles. That's obvious. Clearly, a reference to the fact that they rented a cabin in the middle of the woods, to write Cricket and Clover. So now I'm just gonna go through some of my favorite lyrics from this album. This album, like, notably has some of the most beautiful lyrics that I have ever heard in any music, ever. Ryan Ross is an absolute genius. I love him. You can tell that. He's genuinely amazing. He is genuinely an incredible musician overall, but more so an insane lyricist. Let's read his amazing lyrics. So I don't have ones from every single song because this will take way too long, but I chose just some of my own personal favorites. So for my favorite song, which honestly this might be my favorite Panic song, just like overall, from Do You Know What I'm Seeing? Clouds are marching along, singing a song just like they do. If the clouds were singing a song, I'd sing along, wouldn't you too? Next from The Green Gentleman, I have I'm gonna go where everyone goes. I want to know what everyone knows. I want to go where everyone feels the same. For Northern Downpour, I have two little chunks of lyrics because how could I not? It's probably the most famous lyric off of this entire album. Hey moon, please forget to fall down. Hey moon, don't you go down. Sugar cane in the easy morning, weather vanes, my one and lonely. That wasn't me like tearing up, that was my voice cracking, but through playful lips made of yarn, that fragile Capricorn unveiled words like moths upon old scarves. I know the world's a broken bone, but melt your headaches, call it home. Next, from another one of my favorites, especially just lyrically, we have When the Day Met the Night. So he said, would it be alright if we just sat and talked for a little while? If in exchange for your time I give you this smile. So she said, that's okay as long as you can make a promise not to break my little heart or leave me all alone in the summer. From Mad as Rabbits, this one's very short, but it's one of my favorite things like ever from this album, is basically the chant of we must reinvent love from She Had the World. I don't love you, I'm just passing the time. You could love me if I knew how to lie, but who could love me? I'm out of my mind, throwing a line out to see if I can catch a dream. Those are my favorite lyrics. Like I said, I definitely could have included ones from every single song, but that would take way too long. Next, I'm going to be talking about the aesthetics of this album as a whole. I've curated a lot of the aesthetics for my set here, so I do have a list of things, but I'll just show you what I have. A flower teacup, because the aesthetic of Pretty Odd is encapsulated in flowers. There's a lot of flowers. That is the very beginning of the aesthetics to this album, is flowers, which is why I have these flowers, which are real. And they keep dying on my desk. All these fake ones. Yeah. Flowers, pastel colors, vests, prints, floral prints, summer, love, melancholy, joy, spring, nature, vibrant color palettes, vintage vibes, vinyls, and peace. So going off of the aesthetics, I'm going to be moving into the fashion of Pretty Odd. I'm mainly going to be talking about what Ryan was wearing, Ryan Ross's fashion, but I will also mention the other band members a little bit. A lot of the things that they were wearing kind of continued and evolved from Fever, so Panic obviously has always been known for wearing dress stuff, like vests and button-up shirts and slacks and dress shoes. That's always been their aesthetic, even in Fever, but now it's just more floral prints on their vests and button-ups. With Ryan, he, of course, because he's Ryan Ross, he was wearing a lot of vests. And now his vests were floral patterned, or they were just patterned. They had prints on them. I'm honestly surprised that he didn't bring back the rose vest for this era, because it totally would have fit in. He wore a lot of checkered pants, a lot of plain pants, or pants with stripes on them. He wore a lot of scarves. He wore scarves. He wore a lot of bandanas as well. He's wearing a lot of hats. He's still wearing Baker Boy hats because he's Ryan Ross, but he's also wearing fedoras, and large brim hats. I don't know what they're exactly called, but similar to that. And he's basically just Paul McCartney. For the other members, they had the normal vests, the normal patterns. They tended to dress a little bit more darker than Ryan. Moving away from the fashion, going to be talking about the music videos. There are 4 music videos for the songs in Pretty Odd. The first and probably most well known is 9 in the Afternoon. 9 in the Afternoon, the video and the aesthetics of it, the fashion, it's literally just Sgt. Pepper. Yeah, they have a lot of bright colors. They have color-coded for each member. Red is Brendan, blue is John, yellow is Spencer, and green is Ryan. Parades, animal masks, it's very psychedelic. It's their most druggy video as well. They are just very sleepy boys in this one. They're so tired. They just want to sleep in their color-coded rooms. Moving on to Green Gentleman. Things
things have changed for me, and that's okay.
Boats, they're on a boat. They have like little kids playing them. Cameron, that's very sad. Ryan is literally dressed like Paul McCartney. He is, before I was like joking that his fashion was Paul McCartney, now he is Paul McCartney. This one has just like the same aesthetics as Pretty Odd, a lot of like summery, naturey vibes going on. They also have a giant unicycle, which is kind of giving Fever, but it's there. Northern Downpour.
Sugar cane in the easy morning.
Is a black and white music video because it's sad. So this music video basically is just displaying the lyrics to the song in like various different ways and formats. While I'm talking about Northern Downpour, I'm going to mention it is the only Panic song that Ryan Ross still like mentions and sings. So he's been singing that song in like 2019 and possibly later years as well. So he actually performs that song like till this day, which is really pretty and it makes me cry. Oh yes, it does. Northern Downpour is also Ryan Ross's favorite song off of Pretty Odd, so. Mad as Rabbits. I don't think this one is actually like officially on YouTube, but it's like a bonus on iTunes. So when you download the album, you can get like the deluxe version with this music video. It's been re-uploaded to YouTube though, but it's not like official, but it is. This is basically just like footage of the band recording the album, and it's just kind of them like goofing around and like singing, as well as like mixed footage of them like doing the photo shoot for the vinyl. It's honestly a really, really cute music video. It's very cute. It, like everything in this album, continues with the themes of spring and nature and summer and happiness and them just having a good old time. A good old time for the boys. So, and now I'm going to talk about the tour. Unlike Fever, where they like made their own little like tour names and had their own little sets, I'm saying like little sets like they weren't some of the coolest concerts they've ever done. Anyways, for Pretty Odd, they did a Honda Civic tour and a Rockband tour. It was all very like corporate promotional stuff, and I'm not really sure, but I guess that's what was happening in 2008. So the Honda Civic tour was like, there was a Honda Civic that they all like signed, and it was like, oh, enter to win this. I want to know who owns the Panic at the Disco Honda Civic. I really want to know who owns that. For Pretty Odd, this stage was a lot more low-key than it ever was for Fever, because Fever is an entire circus tour. The set in the stage for Pretty Odd basically follows all the vibes of Pretty Odd, so it's a lot more stripped down, a lot more space. I feel like Fever was very cramped with a lot going on. This one is a lot more mellow. Stage design wise, this is really, really cute. I love this. The mic stands for this tour are all wrapped in flowers. They have bubbles that come out when they play certain songs, like Behind the Sea, which is really pretty. It's all very pretty. It's very beautiful. They have like a fun carpet that's like similar to the actual album design, which is nice. Also, some of them don't wear shoes. They just stand barefoot on the carpet. Spencer now has a mic. Good for him. Love that for him. They just had a lot of fun on this tour, and it's very clear. That's honestly really nice, especially knowing that like it all ended in 2009, but just knowing that they had like this tour to genuinely have fun and like fall in love with music again. So now I'm going to be talking, this is like probably the most factual part of this whole video. I'm going to be talking about the reception to Pretty Odd. They swore to shake it up, and we swore to listen, which a lot of people didn't do. So they got a very mixed response. Some fans loved it in 2008, and some fans hated it in 2008, and that's how it still stands today. Lots of fans in 2008, heard this and were like, oh my god, no, I miss Fever. I want more music that sounds like Fever from Panic at the Disco. Spoiler alert, you're never gonna get that, girlies. Fever, old Panic Fever is never coming back. It's just gonna get worse from here. But yeah, genuinely a lot of people they wanted it to be emo, and it definitely wasn't. So a lot of fans, a lot of emo fans specifically, were disappointed in this album. But other fans really loved it. They liked that it was different and they were just excited to get new music from one of their favorite bands. It was once again a split reaction from critics. Some critics praised them for releasing, an album that sounded completely different from their debut, not making like the second album twice to just like make more money. Instead, they went an entirely different route and were very bold with that decision, and so a lot of critics did end up praising them like a lot for that, very heavily. They were very impressed with them, which I can see why. On the other hand, there were a lot of critics who they were upset that Panic made a record that was kind of retro instead of commenting on their own generation, and they were like, "Rah, you should have made music that was modern. You're young kids, how dare you make old-sounding music?" Very last segment of this is post Pretty Odd. So what came after Pretty Odd? Ryan Ross and John Walker were writing what is now Take a Vacation. Originally, like, all of the songs off of Take a Vacation were meant to be Panic at the Disco songs. Obviously they aren't. This is because the band split up in 2009 in July. This is because John and Ryan wanted to take the band in a very different direction. They wanted to create more records like Pretty Odd and go more into like indie rock, more psychedelic stuff, whereas Spencer and Brendan wanted to make more stuff that sounded like Fever, which then just evolved into pop. So the band split. Ryan and John formed the Young Vanes, where they released Take a Vacation, which, if you haven't listened to that and you like Pretty Odd, listen to it. It's a really, really good record. So with that and the Young Vanes being a thing and then being on hiatus, that's it. That's Pretty Odd. That is Pretty Odd by Panic at the Disco. I hope that you've enjoyed. It was honestly very fun to put together and to record and to research. I just genuinely really love this album, and I love Ryan Ross. So here we are. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Whatever that may be. Alright. Bye.